Okay, so people are listening, they've heard about anxious and avoidant, and there's different versions. How can someone listening work out what their attachment style is?
Yeah, I mean, the simple way to look at this is one, I find the labels to be somewhat useful, but they're not something that you should cling on to. I think that people have gotten into this habit of really over pathologizing a lot of the psychological content that's out there, and it can actually be debilitating for you to make any progress. Because what happens is avoidant attachment becomes like your next star sign, right? It's like, I'm a Leo and I'm avoidant attached, right? And so
put the whole thing on the table here for you guys to give you a real world experience on what it could look like once you start understanding attachment styles, like what it could look like in the real world, in the wild, right? So I'm gonna tell you all about my shit, tell you all about things I got going on right now, and then you can tell me if I'm an idiot or if you think this is a great idea or what, because it's a doozy, I'll tell you that much.
What is attachment theory? How do you describe it to someone that's never heard of it before?
yeah, I mean, the definition of attachment theory is that it is a psychological and evolutionary theory concerning relationships between humans. So it's basically the theory of relationships between people, essentially. And the sort of most important part of it is that young children, we need to develop a relationship with a primary caregiver, and that is one of the foundational tenets to us operating as a normal human being in the world as adults.
Now, the interesting part about it is it can change. I mean, what I would suggest as you get older, that is, what I would suggest is that anybody looks up the book Attached. So you'll see it up there. Fantastic book. And, he may reference it and you're going to hear about it a lot. Okay, so I'm going to tell you, gonna get real open, nitty gritty, and kind of just put the whole thing on the table here for you guys to give you a real world experience on what it could look like once you start understanding attachment styles, like what it could look like in the real world, in the wild, right? So I'm gonna tell you all about my shit, tell you all about things I got going on right now, and then you can tell me if I'm an idiot or if you think this is a great idea or what, because it's a doozy, I'll tell you that much. So just a little background on myself. I'm 40 years old, been single for the majority of the past 18 years, although I've been married twice in my entire life. One very young. It was kind of like, it was a real marriage, married for 4 years, had 2 kids with a girl, but we got married so young, we were never really in love. It was kind of like, there was some love there, but not like a great bond and connection. Many years goes by, I get married again off of a dating app, right? Rushed into it because I thought we had a lot of character traits that were similar and that it was just going to be a great relationship based on how we clicked so well in the beginning. But it was mainly just her and I were both eager to get married. This was a few years back, and it blew up really quick, right? So those were the 2 bad ones, but I've had a lot more serious relationships in between that had nothing to do with marriage. The good meat and potato relationships were just long-term relationships or short-ish term, 6 months to a year. And there was a lot of love and learning and connection and living of life and just understanding who I am as a person, who they were as a person, and what I'm, through those relationships, I kind of learned what I want now in a lot of the ways, which is sad because you wouldn't want to have to go through a lot of relationships or stay single for so long. But some of the silver lining to that is now that I'm at later years in life and I'm looking to find somebody to settle down with, I know pretty clearly the mistakes that I can make, that I'm capable of, and what I need to work on. And I've worked on myself for quite a bit. So I have a lot more to offer now, So quick background, that was just a quick background on my little thing. So I'm dating a girl now and seeing, whatever you want to call it, and you're going to understand why it's so obscure, who is 26. She's going to be 27. So we're looking at, pretty big age gap there. But here's how it's going, right? So again, we met at the gym. We worked out around each other for 4 years, right? Never really talked. And then we started talking about 6 months ago. She had come from a relationship, just got out of a relationship, but it was very complicated. I'm not going to talk about all her details. And so when we first started talking as just friends and everything, I didn't even realize, just because she didn't show a lot of signs, but she was so fresh out of a relationship. She was just spinning. You know how you get in rebound mode, you know? And just also, her and I have never, you know, no intimacy yet or anything. We're just literally in the getting to know each other stage. So that it's not like she rebounded with me or anything like that. So to fast forward with what's going on here, it started off like getting to know each other. You know, I did the whole thing, like approached her in the gym. It was tough, man. Let me tell you, shit was fucking brutal, man. I don't know. Maybe everybody's great at that, but it's not easy to approach a girl who's fucking hot as shit in the gym that you work out in all the time. Because you're like, well, if it goes good, fabulous. If it doesn't go good, I got to see this girl all the fucking time. And if I get rejected on this shit, which I have been rejected, you know, you got to see the person all the time. And so you just kind of don't like it because you're just like, that's a bummer. It didn't work out. And, you know, I'm definitely a strange individual and I'm in sales. So rejection has just become a part of my life. You get to the place where you realize like, you don't even give a shit about it anymore. I mean, you don't want to feel it. You don't want to see it. And it's important, obviously, in relationships because it's different than just selling somebody. But, you know, you get to the point where you just don't take it personal anymore. You're like, yeah, rejection. Okay, it's going to make me better. And in fact, the more rejection I can get, the better I'm going to be at what I'm doing right now. So I'm just going to go for it all the fucking time. So when you start applying that to like cold approaches or dating, it's a little dangerous because you just don't give a fuck. You're like, okay, I'm just going to next, until you start learning on what to say, what to do, how to approach, how to do this whole thing. And, you know, it can be a little addicting, to be honest with you. But at the same time, this happened in the gym, and then we start talking and everything. And, you know, I'm getting to know her in the beginning, and I will go ahead and say it. After I got her number for the first time, I text her, and she full blown like ghosted me. Like not even ghosted, but like no responded. And she has red receipts. I'm like, what the fuck, bitch? Are you fucking kidding me? After everything we talked about, and we're gonna see each other in the gym, you're gonna read my shit and not get back to me? What the fuck? You know? And I'm like looking in the mirror, like, fuck, okay. I think clearly I don't qualify for this girl. I can't believe she just left me on red. You know, it was fucking brutal, right? Low fucking blow. And again, Mr. like doesn't give a shit about rejection. I'm like, all right, whatever, next. You know, wasn't the way that it was when we were in person. Got along great in person. I would have never expected to get no responded like that. And the message was left on red. Brutal. Girl's fucking cold blooded, right? So, I see her like a couple of weeks later, and we see each other in the parking lot or whatever, and it was cool. You know, I didn't make it weird or anything like that. I don't even give a shit. And so we're talking and everything, and I'm like, I did text you though. And she's like, yeah, I'm sorry. You know, I've just been processing things and everything because I didn't even realize she was still kind of like, I shouldn't even have been texting her. She just like barely broke up with somebody. I should have been not even doing any of that, you know. So after that though, I was like, all right, that's cool. You know, we see each other, gym, say hi or whatever. Like 2-3 weeks later, then she finally texts me back like, hey, you know, what are you up to and all that stuff. And then we end up going to lunch, and then we start dating a little bit, seeing each other. I'm just kind of giving you the broad overviews here. And so I'm digging it, but I'm like, man, this girl, you know, the way I'm thinking about it is like, this girl is fucking, she is cold blooded. Most of the time I'm like, does she even like me? Like, what is going on? She is like not laughing at my jokes, you know? And I'm not very funny, but let me tell you, I say a lot of stupid shit just to get a girl to laugh. I'll say and do anything just because I know if I can get them to laugh, then I got half the battle done right now. You know, I know for one, I got you laughing, and I got like, you know, some cross-mogenation going on in this date going on. You're going to remember some stuff. You know, I'm going to make it memorable for sure. Couldn't get the girl to laugh either. I'm like, man, can't get her to laugh. She's not really asking me very many questions in the beginning. So I'm just like, you know, and I'm not stupid. You know, I got to read people fairly well, being in sales for many years. And just being an intuitive individual. You know, I don't think I know what I'm talking about, but I definitely pay attention to people's mannerisms, body language, the things they say, you know, and try to, you know, read the situation so I don't make myself look worse than I sometimes can just off the bat, you know. So we're kind of like seeing how things are going and all this, and like back and forth, you know. There was always a lot of back and forth though. She texts me, I text her, we see each other at the gym, we work out, we go to lunch, go to dinner. Well, finally one day we're hanging out, and she's like telling me, she's like, you know, I just don't want you to think this is going to go anywhere. And I'm like, first off, she texted me that day to come hang out. So I'm like, you fucking texting me. And I'm like, okay, I didn't ever ask anything of you anyway. So I understand you're not available right now. And she's like, yeah. And I go, but I do have a specific question. You're talking about not going to go anywhere just with me, or you're just not available right now for this type of thing? And she's like, no, just like in general. So I knew what she meant. But let me tell you, when you hear something like that, you're like, oh man, am I making shit up in my mind? Or is she telling me I'm going to friend zone your ass? You know, you're getting friend zoned, and I don't just drop a bunch of money on this chick or anything like that. I'm not trying to buy anybody. It's never been that way. She's never treated me that way, right? And but in my mind, I'm just like, man, I'm getting so many mixed messages here. Like, this is weird. Like, you're texting me, then you're leaving me on read receipts in the beginning, and then you're staring at me in the gym, looking at you, and like, I know there's some shit going on there. I know in my own head, I'm like, no, I know there's chemistry here. But why would she say that, And why the hell did she text me to come hang out? And then we ended up having a whole great date that day. We ended up getting through that little conversation. And because for me, again, I don't even let that shit hit. That's like, might as well just right over my head. I don't give a fuck. If somebody was being serious, if there was no connection there, I would know, and I would not be like continuing to pursue, at all. And so, but this has not been that vibe. But it was still like, what is your deal? Why are you pushing me away so much, right? So I'm like, don't even worry about it. I go, look, you know where I stand on this whole thing. I dig the hell out of you, and but I don't need anything from you. I'm just, getting to know you, and that's all I need to worry about, anyways. Not to mention my life. So I told her exactly. I go, my life is heavy. I'm not like an easygoing individual. I got 2 kids, been divorced twice, got a lot of things that I'm working on in my personal life. Not to make it sound like it's all great, but I just have big goals that I'm pursuing, and I spend a lot of time on that. So I'm not just like going on vacation and fucking, taking my dog on walks and just hanging out all the time. My life is actually pretty complicated, and it requires the type of person that is okay with that you're going to be with somebody who's got a lot of ambition on higher level goals and is consumed by it half the time. I'm not saying it's bad stuff or that I'm not available, but I'm not an easygoing individual, And so I let her know those things too. And she's like, yeah, I don't know about that. And I'm like, cool, but we're good, right? Yep. So we were chilling. We had a great day that day. So I see her again like a day after that, and we go to lunch again. And then I knew at this point, though, I need to back off just completely. So I'm giving you like really broad overviews here. A whole month goes by, right? I didn't even text her, nothing. The whole month. I see her in the gym. Of course, we work out together quite a few times a week, 2-3 times a week. But never talk to her, never text her, no nothing. A whole month goes by. And then sure enough, I'm at the gym, and she's, shoots me a little text about something stupid. And I'm like, all right, here we go. We're breaking the seal again, And so we start bullshitting and everything. And then I had dated some people in between. So I'm just like, I had to throw that in there as like a dagger, just to fucking poof, Haven't talked to you. You're going to try to play hard to get over there. So I threw a little bullshit out there. You're like, yeah, I was dating this girl, just to make her jealous, of course. And I don't know if that worked or not. But anyways, I think I'm getting into too much detail because so we start dating again. I wanted to tell you where this is all leads to an attachment style situation. While this is all happening, right? And most of this, I think I just listened to the Attached book. I'd like started understanding the attachment theory a little bit as this has been going on, and just no suspense here. The girl is avoidant, and now I'm starting to understand she is fearful avoidant, not a fearful individual. But once you understand the attachment styles, you'll understand what that's all about. And it made so much sense to me now. But anyways, during this time, I didn't fully understand it, but I was learning as this is going on, right? As the month was off and all these things are going on. And so then we, time's continuing to go on there. We start seeing each other again after the month, like just dating anyways, going out and everything. And now, because I gave it a month off, and because this girl was the avoidant attachment style, which just basically means she, she's very, doesn't want, when you get close to her, she feels suffocated. Nothing that you actually did wrong, and this isn't like I have everything ironed out. It's just once you understand the attachment theory, you'll get it. These are the tenets. These are the outward expressions of something that might be going on inside, so that you could understand why they behave ways that are confusing. And also, like, you still got to bounce it against the wall and say, well, is this person pushing away because I'm being too pushy? Or is this person really just want to be friends? Or is this just, the type of behavior that somebody demonstrates when they've had a lot of trauma as a child and it's never been dealt with, and now they've turned into someone who anybody that gets close is like a danger to them. Like they might want you to be close, and then once you get close, it feels scary for them because they feel like you're going to now hurt them. The moment they start to like you, they feel like you might actually be in the place where now they're vulnerable and you're going to hurt them because everybody else in the past has hurt them, right? And she's that way big time. And so I'm starting to learn that stuff, right? And then we're going out a couple more times after that month off, and what a fucking difference. What a major difference, right? Because now that the month had gone by, there's just no way to look at this as if I'm being too in her space. I've given her all the space in the world. Like, honestly, why are we even hanging out again after a month? You know, the way that you start understanding. And I ask myself the same questions, like, why are we actually hanging out again? Why are you texting me? Why are we doing these things, you know? And I've already told her many times, I'm like, you know, my firm belief is that guys and girls cannot be friends. And maybe her and I will break that mold. Maybe we'll never be more than friends, because that's all we really are right now. But at the same time, understanding the attachment theory has given me this huge framework. Sorry, Siri keeps turning on. This huge framework to be able to understand why she's behaving the way she's behaving. Now, the first thing that I took from it is there's probably a very, very, very low probability that her and I will ever actually be in a relationship, right? I didn't take it like, oh, this is what's going on. So looks like now that I've figured it out, you know, I didn't do anything. It must just be all her. I haven't done anything wrong. No way. The way I look at it is, now I have an understanding of my personality traits that don't click with her, and that would make her feel like not just uncomfortable, but like suffocated when it's not suffocating. Like, just to try to hang out or to start telling somebody that you actually like them. You know, you're like, no. I've had to tell her this a couple different times, because I don't put any pressure on her, because I know that it's this way that she's like, doesn't want to let people get close. And she's even said it many times, you know, and she's always trying to push me away. She's like, oh, you know, you're not going to like every time I let somebody in, I don't want to put all her business out here. So I'm just saying that every time we get into more serious conversations, she's been very much clear to disclose that there's a lot of things that I'm going to be getting into that I may not like. And that's why I'm like, oh no, I'm going to tell you I'm the same way too at times. You know, it doesn't bother me at all. Now, what I've found about this is that it helps me to understand what's going on and how to behave. And then it gives me a clear view of if I wanted to actually continue to pursue a relationship with this individual, you know, and weigh the cost. So I'm getting really into the nitty gritty for you guys here. Hopefully some people are finding this interesting. So most of it is like a high risk, right? Based on her personality traits, attachment style that I can understand with my layman understanding, and based on the way that I am and my personality traits and attachment style and all that stuff that I figured out, it's going to be difficult for her and I to ever make anything. I'm not sitting around waiting for somebody to be like, oh, this is what this person has going on. Now I'll just kind of get behind that. I have a whole world and life going on that it's large, encompassing. So when somebody that I start dating, they typically get sucked into that, right? And so she's the type where she's kind of the same way. She just has her own thing going on. She's a avoidant, primarily individual. So she doesn't give a shit about anything I got going on. She just wants to have her own thing, and hope possibly we can come together in a relationship. You know, we're going to see how that works, but it's a super low probability, right? And you might be asking, well, now that you know that it's a low probability, and you know that it's, you know, something that is going to be hard, and there's plenty of women out there, so why are you just so continuing to push on it? Well, this is what I would say, and trust me, I've thought deeply about it. There's a few other components that go with this, but there's a few things that I'll tell you why. Number one, she's demonstrated to me that she's unique. She's honest. She is forthright, and she doesn't sugarcoat shit. I don't feel like I'm missing anything with her. I wouldn't say that I'm know everything about the girl, but she doesn't strike me as a dishonest person, right? And the things that I've learned about her, even from the get-go, it's not that I'm happy with all of it. It's just the idea that I don't want to get shocked with some type of secret bullshit down the road, you know? The other thing is the age, right? And it's not because I want to date some younger chick. I told her this before, because she asked me, what is your deal? I'm not the only one older guy that goes for younger chicks. But I told her my specific thing is, this is real. Maybe this is something that a lot of other people could understand, is somebody coming in a very rational viewpoint on this. I'm not trying to be chauvinistic or just be like, I just am going to date younger people. If you hear any red pill stuff or dating dynamics, sexual marketplace, you can hear a lot of stuff that is very aggressive in this area. Like, you must date younger people because That's when they're looking for somebody responsible, and now you've built a life, and they have the whole framework around it. And I think all that's great, and I agree. But at the same time, this is my main gig, is I want to, ideally, build a life with somebody before she specifically gets to the age where she's going to start going through like some major changes of life, like menopause type of deal. Because in our day and age, 2024, and by that time it'll be closer to 2040, whatever it is, marriage isn't held at a very high regard, and staying together isn't something that is the societal norm if things get difficult. So let's say that I get with somebody who's 40, like my age, and all of a sudden goes through menopause in 10 to 12 years. We've only had 10 to 12 years to build a life together, in which to build something that has value and worth to fight for. During that time, what's to hold them in the relationship when everybody around them and society is saying, why would you stay? There's no reason to stay in a relationship. Think about it. You're an independent woman. You have your own money. You have your own thing. Women are completely equal to men in the workplace, society, and I wouldn't disagree with that. I would, you guys all know I'm a Christian guy. I'm going to touch on this, but we need to stop thinking that way, that just because you're understand and you're a Christian, that you're going to somehow be like, the woman stays home and makes dinner and washes the dishes, I go to work. That's fucking retarded. Okay, there's nothing wrong with that setup, but if you think that that's the way things need to be because you're a Christian, you're fucking retarded. So the idea is that the things that can make a woman attractive is those things, that she has the intellect, which this girl does, very intellectual, very smart girl, and to be able to have their own life financially and not need the other person to take care of them in that way. Now, will I be taking care of them? Absolutely. But I don't have to. If they want to have a life, if she wants to have her own money and all those things, great. It's just going to add to our value together. But if there was a necessity for that not to be there, I'm already prepared to take care of all that stuff. And that's my responsibility. So even though that person has their own money and all those things, I'm still responsible for anything negative that happens. Nobody's going to like that. Any guys or anybody else can be like, that doesn't seem fair. That's because that's the way the relationship works. It's not fair. That's why the man has to be the stronger individual, not the better one, the stronger individual willing to take responsibility, whether or not he feels that it's equal or not. It doesn't matter, because that is what God says. It doesn't matter whether we both make the same amount of money or close to equivalent or whatever. Things go bad, my responsibility. Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. Things go good, she gets the credit. That's how it works. And I know nobody likes that, but that's the way that it works. And the point is, with something like this, when someone has that independence, but somebody who's willing to lead out of love and a selfless, redemptive style of love, now that's the right intent. But over the years, if that's no longer vibrant the way that it was in the beginning, and now somebody's going through that change of life where they're not even feeling the same about their partner, maybe there's no chemistry there, no sexual chemistry there at that point, why would they stay? Why would they stay? They really will. My goal, if I can find someone who is intellectually mature enough and who is in a place of life who is younger than myself, I don't care if they're my age, I don't care if they're younger than me by 10 years or 13 years in this case. It doesn't matter to me. The number doesn't matter to me. But, obviously there's some generalities. It's harder once you get to those younger years to relate in many other aspects of life experiences, circumstances. We got children to talk about. The goal would be to be with somebody a little bit younger who's kind of wise ahead of their years. That way we have more time to build a life together. That way by the time we hit those years where it could hit some difficulties because of those changes in hormones and just of life, menopause, that neither of us could really know until we go through it, that we have enough of a life built together to have a much better probability of making it through that time. That's why. That's my biggest reason why. But to give you a perspective on what I'm going through with the attachment theory, once I understood it, I'm here to tell you it has actually improved my chances of possibly having a relationship with this woman who is phenomenal, which I would have messed it up in the past. Not because I just wouldn't have understood her behavior. And it's helped me to understand it, which helped me to have more patience. And I'm hoping that patience actually pays off. But it's patience with no expectations. It's patience with understanding that it's just getting to the next place to see what we can work on at that next place and see if we could progress to the next level. You start patience with expectations, you're going to be disappointed, because you have to be able to be patient and understand that this is where it does help to have faith in the triune God, not just any old thing, okay? Because you know he's sovereign and he's in control. So it doesn't mean that you just sit there and wait for him to beam down a wife to you or whatever it is, or a circumstance or a job or money. But you can understand that this is in his control, just like he's in control of your soul. What happens after your consciousness turns off? He's in control. He's also in control of your relationship status, right? Doesn't mean you don't do nothing. It means that you work and work on bettering yourself so that you're ready for what may possibly come into your life, right? It puts the onus on you to actually be the best version of who you are, and you're in his image, so you have every reason to do it, and get ready for a possible positive thing in the future, but no expectations, because if it doesn't come, you're not owed that. So you have that freedom to be able to operate knowing that the burden of responsibility, so to speak, is not on there. It's up to God on what he's going to do in your life. Your burden is to work on yourself and be the best possible version of yourself for the people around you that aren't, I have kids, I have family members. I got to be the best person I can for them. And by working on myself so I can secure a future wife, it's making me a better person for the people around me too. That's what I'm talking about. That's how you react when you actually have faith in the one holy triune God. You can only find that through that. You could find Buddhism and all those other things, but what ends up doing is to give you, a very, any other religion could give you a better life. I'm not trying to make a better life. So I have to segue this into a different portion of this video and maybe a different video. And you can listen to some of our older videos on what it means to have a biblically God-honoring union. If you understood that, you'd understand what I'm trying to say is I don't give a shit about what's going on in this life. The marriage is actually about Christ and the church, and it's a living, breathing representation of the gospel, which is why I could pursue it without having to worry about oh man, I got to make this happen so I can have my soulmate. I don't worry about it at all. I don't worry about that at all. I just know that if I get the opportunity and the blessing and privilege to have a marriage, that it needs to be honoring to God, because it's designed to be a living, breathing representation of what he did on the cross. So much bigger than what you could ever understand out of some low-level framework of what somebody's trying to tell you what marriage could be based on some weird religion or just trying to have a nice life here. Let's break the news to each other. It's not going to give you a nice life here if that's all it's about. It's just making each other happy. So the ramble turned into a 28-minute ramble, but I will tell you that this attachment theory framework is game-changing on the whole field of dating, marriage, of working on yourself, on positive growth within yourself. Man, you could use these things to be able to offer so much more to the people that you love and care about, even that you're not in a relationship with, because it helps you really look at things through a lens that can allow you to receive criticism without being like, oh, that's not me. It's fantastic. All right. So what we see is the theory of relationships, the attachment theory framework, concept, idea. For me, this has been like a game changer, like an eye opener. I mean, it's just been absolutely one of the most helpful things, period, when it comes to understanding women for me, and relationships and the dating dynamic, which unfortunately I'm in. Should be called courtship, but I'm out here trying to find somebody to have a not just relationship with, but get married. And what he's saying here is that bond that you build when you're a little baby, that attachment you build is the same type of traits that you carry into your older years. Now, the interesting part about it is it can change. I mean, what I would suggest as you get older, what I would suggest is that anybody looks up the book Attached. So you'll see it up there. Fantastic book. And, he may reference it and you're going to hear about it a lot. And we start going down this rabbit hole with Connor Beaton. And then you have there's a bunch of different people that are talking about it. And what winds up happening is you start seeing yourself in these attachment styles, but I think most people don't want to look at themselves, so they look at whoever they're dating or married to, or whoever they're considering, moving to the next level with. If they're dating or been in a long-term relationship, maybe they're considering, proposing or something like that. And as that happens, you start realizing like, oh, what about me? What about my attachment style? Because we're so used to pointing the finger when it comes to relationships. And this is not about pointing a finger. It's about understanding why people behave the way they behave in a relationship, and the attachments we build in relationships, manner and fashion. Game changing.
There's two main phases that happen in development early on in childhood. The first one is between 0 and 18 months, where we are trying to discern whether or not our environment is okay, whether or not our external environment is okay. And secondly, between 18 months to 3 years, where we're trying to discern whether or not we are okay as human beings. Are we safe? Is there something wrong with us? When we drive the truck into the wall, does dad freak out and scream at us? Are we, do they shame us? Do we get criticized for it? Do we get spanked? Like, what happens in proximity to our caregivers? And there's a very simple foundational piece that builds attachment that I love, which is from Dewey Freeman. And he says that attachment is built when we go through a hard time in relationship with somebody and come out the other side okay. Okay, so attachment is built when we go through a hard time and come out the other side okay in relationship with somebody.
It's about understanding that we have these attachment styles that have grown since we were children. And again, it's not even about pointing fingers at the parents, because you could have the best parents in the world, but the way that this comes out is when you're a baby and you're in those developmental years. Your subconscious mind, they would call it, is really doing a lot of its developmental time between the ages of 0 to 18 months, and then from 18 months to 36 months, you have additional kind of confirming aspects of what's been happening in the first 18. The first 18 are crucial, and then the second 18 to 36 like solidifies what has happened in the first 18 months. And I know for a fact, being that I'm a parent of 2 kids, in the first 18 months, you're not thinking at all about how much you're affecting your kids' attachment style, like how they're going to be in their relationships when they're way older. You're just like worried about paying the bills, or, you're probably just trying to get back into the groove with your wife or your husband because you just got through having a child, and now you're getting used to like the sleep schedule and everything, and you're still trying to maintain a happy relationship with your partner. And so you're like not even thinking about the baby. You're just making sure that the baby is well taken care of, but you're not like, okay, we don't want to fuck up their subconscious mind, so let's really make sure that we're being with them and letting them feel heard and playing with them enough and talking to them enough. And if they cry, don't go into them too soon, because then they'll be too needy, but don't leave them going too long, because then they'll feel abandoned. You're not thinking about any of this. You're just like trying to figure life out at this point, because you got a new baby that you just created, and you're just kind of like, this is great, it's phenomenal, but it's just like such an impactful different time, And so everybody kind of drops the ball when it comes to not being able to be perfect as a parent from the ages forever, but also especially from the ages 0 to 18 months and 18 months to 36 months. We're really figuring things out most of the time. So not to identify with a label, but to understand that once you start demonstrating these personality traits, you can now understand 2 things. If you yourself are demonstrating the personality traits, like I've come to find out that I have a lot of avoidant personality traits, and I anybody could have told you that, but at the same time, once I start seeing it, once you see yourself in it, you're like, why am I doing this? This is dumb. I don't want this outcome. I don't want to be lonely. I don't like this outcome. I don't like being alone all the time. So you realize what trade-offs you need to make that feel like a trade-off in your own mind, but it actually is normal in the real world. And then if you're looking at your person that you're either dating or courting, or if you're married, you start seeing their attachment style really fast, right? And you start realizing, what do I need to do to overcome these objections that are being caused by this attachment style? That's also possibly bad, because now you're turning into a manipulator. You don't want to just know these tools and then know how to present yourself so that you don't have any friction or get what you want, but you're actually not solving anything, because it's not a relationship methodology. It's not saying you can have a good relationship if you have a fearful avoidant mixes with an anxious, secure or whatever it is. That's not the way that it works. It's just a framework to tell you this is why there are uncomfortable frictions and difficulties between these two people. And it's probably, if it's enough, you start realizing and you factor in lifestyle choices, circumstances, and just individual characteristics between the two. You realize based on all those factors, here's your probability of a good outcome, or your probability is really low. So you're going to have to start doing some really aggressive work on yourself and on the relationship. Then you might find somebody else who it's like, okay, based on all those same factors, you guys are a great fit, and you guys probably rarely ever fight. People are like, no. Then you could be like, yeah, but here's what's going to happen if you want to have this relationship last 30, 40 years, down the road, based on these attachment styles. Over time, you might start feeling a less satisfactory, relationship with your counterpart because of this. And even though you're a very tolerant, humble, forgiving person, over time, it's going to wear you down. So don't let it get there. These are excellent tools to be able to have, because it doesn't point the finger, and it doesn't make somebody feel as if they're being attacked, even when they're reading it and trying to figure it out for themselves. It's a very objective way to look at how people behave, because they're not personality traits, they're attachment styles. It's just an incredible way to do things, and so as we expand on this, and as I show you some of these things, and I'm going to tell you some of my personal stories here, just know that this is meant to be looked at in a very, what's the easiest way? Look at it in a novel way, like it's something new, and also look at it with an open mind, knowing that nobody's trying to hurt you. Any of us can look at this and benefit. Even if you have the best marriage or relationship in the world, you're still going to benefit from it, because you're going to understand why the other person does certain things that really you usually take it like you did something wrong. And sometimes you didn't. Sometimes it's just their own internal issues they're dealing with, and you're never going to be able to figure it out. And this won't tell you the solution. It'll give you an idea on why that behavior happened, and then you can realize like, okay, I shouldn't get upset about that type of deal. So let's carry on.